Dzień dobry and welcome to Cold Calling, a show where we look at the current events through the eyes of fellow Polanders. What's a Polander, you might ask? It's someone who's associated with Poland either by birth or by choice. Maybe someone who's born and raised here or someone who has moved here and has fallen in love with the place. Today my guest is Daniel Gleichgewicht, editor of New Eastern Europe, a bi-monthly magazine with a focus on the former Soviet space, published by the Jan Nowak Jerojanski College and the European Solidarity Center. He hails from Norway, is half Polish, and he has been living in Poland since he was 13. Before emigrating to Poland, his family were deeply involved in the Solidarność movement. His father is one of the founders of the Student Solidarity Committee, and also one of the founders of the Polish Czechoslovakian branch of Solidarność. Hi, Daniel. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the current situation is that we're in between election stages or levels, if you can say that. Can you maybe give us kind of like a brief overview of the current situation before we start with the news snippets?
Sure. So we're right after the election, the first round, which was on Sunday. And the second round will take place on July 12th. And in Poland, in the first round, there were 11 candidates. But if none of the candidates gets above 50%, there is a second round. So Andrzej Duda, the incumbent, the president, got 43% of the votes, and Rafał Trzaskowski, the main candidate of the opposition, got 30%. So they are going to face off in the second round on July 12th.
So there are high stakes in this game. The first snippet talks a little bit about this discrepancy between Duda and the runner-up. It's from deutschewelle.com, and the snippet goes a little bit something like this. The favorite national conservative incumbent Andrzej Duda has clearly won the first round. The gap of around 13% to his challenger, the liberal centrist Rafał Trzaskowski, is quite large. The mayor of Warsaw, which is Trzaskowski, will find it quite difficult to make this lead up in the runoff vote. Do you buy that or deny it?
Well, it's not impossible. I mean, after all, there's still some time left before the second round, and a lot of things can happen. The mayor of Warsaw, Trzaskowski, definitely has to mobilize his electorate, and he will try also to reach out to the votes which were in the millions of other candidates, especially the third and fourth place, which you could characterize as anti-establishment, but also libertarian and very focused on individual freedoms. Of course, it's becoming more and more brutal. The campaign, as was evident yesterday with the revelations, for example, of the president pardoning a pedophile in March, which and things like this could pop up and definitely change the game. When you think about the elections 5 years ago, Duda had 34%, just 1% above Komorowski, who was the incumbent at the time. So this is also a pointer to that things could change in the second round.
You never know what might happen. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, right?
That's true. Especially in Poland, I must add.
Now, let's look at the second snippet. This is from Euronews.com. And it goes a little something like this. According to Trzaskowski, who is part of the Liberal Civic Platform, that's PO, Polish voters have a stark choice. They must decide between a Poland that is open or a leader that still divides. Do you buy it or deny it?
Well, when it's put like that, it's hard to deny it, because if you've observed the campaign, you've seen that President Duda has definitely been the more divisive candidate. He's focused on the LGBT minority, dragging them out kind of into the spotlight in you could say the wrong way. And Trzaskowski has been more about the pandemic, more general issues about Duda's inefficiencies in different areas. But you could also add the recent news, for example, that in an interview yesterday, Duda referred to Warszawka or Krakówek, which mean the kind of the elites that run the bigger cities. So it's clear that there is a divide, also a geographical, demographical divide between the bigger cities and the periphery.
In the off chance that Trzaskowski does win this second round and becomes president, how do you see the cooperation between him and the government, which will then probably not be in his favor?
Well, this is a good question, because this is the last election in an election cycle, which has featured 4 elections, and we might have a break for 3 years. And we saw it, for example, in 2010, which was a very memorable and of course tragic year in Polish politics and for Poland in general. But few seem to remember that in the time up to that, there was a big conflict between Lech Kaczyński, who was then president, and Donald Tusk, who was the prime minister, where even small things as trips representing Poland in Brussels or elsewhere were a big problem. So this could be a possibility if that happens. On the other hand, Rafał Trzaskowski will then have a chance to block certain legal procedures, especially in the Sejm, where PiS has been allowed to go very much with their own pace, sort of say. Yeah.
Trzeba dbać o naszą Polskę, o lasy. Przecież to nasz wspólny dom.
Cieszymy się, jesteśmy tacy szczęśliwi.
Our next snippet is actually not a news snippet, but it's from the human rights organization OSCE. And it's taken from their analysis of the campaign that Duda was running, that you mentioned, was characterized by some negative rhetoric. The campaign was characterized by negative and intolerant rhetoric, further polarizing an already adversarial political environment. In an evidently polarized and biased media landscape, the public broadcaster failed to ensure balanced and impartial coverage and rather served as a campaign tool for the incumbent. What do you say, Daniel? Do you buy it or deny it?
Well, I buy it, because even a non-English speaker who would watch the state TV channel or TVP Info, which is kind of the news channel of state TV, would notice that the president just features much more. Is dominating the message there. And when you think about that state media has better access geographically also, if you go to outside of the bigger cities, you will notice that it's more prominent. It's harder to find the commercial stations. And this puts into question the fairness of the elections themselves, if there is enough access to media in this landscape, in this environment.
Do you think the social media has some kind of way of disrupting this monopoly?
I think to a certain extent, but because you can see the demographical divide right now with older people voting for Duda, so it's kind of preaching to the choir. They're convincing their own electorates, and they're not crossing that much. And this is why the around 10% who haven't decided yet, and the electorate of Hołownia and Bosak, the third and fourth place, might be crucial. So every single vote counts, it seems like.
Right, Daniel, thank you very much for your insights on this really exciting topic. I guess we'll see where the next week takes us, and I, for one, am interested to see the turnout, and I hope to read about it in neweasterneurope.eu.
Thank you for having me. It's going to be a very interesting time, no doubt, with impact also on not only on Poland, but on Europe as well, I'm sure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Daniel.